Hello, hello, hello. How are you today, Benny?
I'm great. How's Mackenzie doing?
Mackenzie's pretty good today, even
That's
though
good.
the weather's so shit in London today. It's
Yes,
been
yes.
raining. I don't think we've seen sun in maybe a month, and I was wondering why I was feeling kind of off for the past
That's
month,
probably
and I'm like,
why.
oh, it's the weather.
Yeah, that's the one thing I don't know about London. Like, I love it. I love the city a lot, but like you guys, it seems like that's the case so often.
See, I never. I lived here a couple of years ago, or I say a couple of years ago. I lived here in 2013 to 2015.
Mm,
And I always told people, they were like, oh, isn't it miserable? And I was like, no, surprisingly, we've had great weather, blah, blah, blah. It's always been fine.
you were there at a good
And
time.
now I'm like, oh God, from an entire month of just gray.
Yeah, that's super odd because it's pretty cold today in Toronto here, but it's
Sunny.
fairly sunny, so I'll
Yeah.
take it.
Oh man. Well, today we are talking all about what everybody's talking about for the past week, and that's TikTok ban. We kind of didn't talk about it for a while because they were talking about this ban, was it a year and a half ago?
For a long time. Yeah.
And it just kept going back and forth, back and forth. And then as of last week, a new bipartisan bill was reintroduced into the states. And that basically could mean that TikTok could actually be officially banned, especially since now President Biden has said that he would sign off on the bill, which is crazy.
Yeah, that is pretty insane. It's such a massive trickle down effect because of how popular TikTok has become. Like just to think
Absolutely.
about the spillover of where that goes. Like that's yeah, it's a truly fascinating thing that there's actually a chance that this happens.
Yeah, especially with, like you said, with the trickle down effect of it all. And now more and more people like Florida and I think Texas both put in forward bills about protecting young kids from social media. I think Florida was actually trying to do a ban where kids younger than 16 couldn't actually have social media until they were 16.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I feel like if you ban this, what, like you said, what could be the next thing? Like, could this have a snowball effect on other areas of social media?
Yeah, it's so fascinating because here in Canada they're currently trying to pass a bill under the same kind of vein of like child protection, but they're throwing in so much vague language
Mm,
that like the use of these rules are could be so wide reaching. So I'm always like a little skeptical of censorship of any kind because
yeah,
it's like where's the line drawn? That's always my biggest thing. Like, I think that obviously protecting kids is of the utmost importance, but when it's thrown
hugely.
around so many vague points of language, it's like this could be abused pretty easily.
Absolutely. And I think also we have this, and I'm going to be doing a lot of flip-flopping and back and forth on this subject because I think it's a very important subject and it kind of is far reaching in terms of social media as a whole. But now that obviously Meta has completely removed news from every single platform around the world, I think that's just, yeah. So they started in Canada, I believe.
Yeah.
And then now they have said in the UK, the US, and they're slowly removing it from every single country because I think a lot of it is misinformation. People are sharing misinformation, them not wanting to have certain information shared. And also, a lot of it, I believe, was like Canada was saying that their authors or the writers and journalists aren't getting paid.
Yeah, so that's what I was about to ask because I know Canada is a response to them demanding money from them. So with all these other countries, is it Meta making this choice or are policies forcing their hand?
I believe it's Meta who's making the choice. I'll have to
Okay.
double check that. And I'm probably spreading, me personally, I'm spreading misinformation on this because it was just something that I basically glanced at last week and I have it in our newsletter. If
Okay.
you're not subscribed to Talk Social to Me newsletter, please sign up
Definitely do
because
that.
I send out social media news every single week. Soft plug. But it was something that I put into the newsletter this week, and it's just Meta is, I think, ahead of obviously the US election. They
Hmm.
kind of keep getting sued by different lawmakers saying that they're spreading misinformation. And obviously, the upping of AI on their platform, also spreading misinformation on both sides. I think they're just trying to nip that in the bud a little bit and just be like, you know what? We're just going to press pause on all news at the moment
That's
and
interesting.
not have the tab anymore.
Yeah, see, because Canada's a very different situation where Canada, for the longest time, our government owned our biggest media outlets, and so basically, like they would make money off of every bit of information or news consumed in Canada. And
Yeah.
now, no one watches these legacy outlets. So, like, what was massive businesses that were run by the government are now being taken away. And so, this is their attempt to try to like salvage some of that.
Yeah.
Pretty messed up, in my opinion, how they're doing it here in Canada. But for the other countries, maybe they're following a similar approach. But I don't,
Well,
I don't
yeah.
know.
So I believe you said in Canada you can't share any news, correct?
Well, all the anything that's deemed news is blocked out.
Okay, so that I don't believe that's like not happening. Basically, what they're doing. So I just found the report, and
Okay.
this is straight from The Verge, the article, which I will link below. It's called "Facebook will remove its news tab and stop paying publishers for news."
Okay.
So what it says is that Facebook's news tab launched in 2019 with millions of dollars in content deals for publishers. It's going away for good in April. Meta says it will depreciate Facebook news in the US and Australia in April 2024. It won't enter new commercial deals for news, and it will not offer new Facebook products specifically for news publishers in the future.
Okay.
Facebook News, located in the News tab, is no longer currently available in the UK, France, and Germany. And then, like I said, starting in early April, it'll no longer be available in the United States and Australia. So they're slowly
Okay.
starting to take it off as a whole. But I don't think it will be blocked like it is in Canada.
Yeah, because it's straight up. If you go to a news account, it literally says we don't show news content in your region of the world or whatever. It's pretty crazy.
That's wild to me. Like, that's absolutely wild.
And I think that some sort of government intervention for this kind of technology is inevitable because of how powerful it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, who draws these lines is the biggest issue.
Yeah. So, and again, we'll start with the news, and then obviously with TikTok potentially being banned, we're going to kind of go into that now.
Mm.
This is such a massive story, and I don't think it's getting the attention that it once did. Because last time when they were talking about a potential ban, I feel like every single outlet was talking about it. I feel like people were talking about it nonstop. And now that the possibility is actually about to happen, could happen, like seriously this time, I feel like nobody's really talking about it.
Yeah, I think we're probably all desensitized to it because we've heard these headlines a bunch of times.
True.
And we're always just like, oh, yeah, okay, here we go. Like, we're dumb to it. But this one does seem to hold some weight.
Yeah. And what I find really interesting is that the person who was so gung ho on getting it banned last time, which was obviously Donald Trump, he has now reversed his position on it.
Yeah, I
and
saw that too.
basically said that actually Meta is the enemy and that we shouldn't be banning TikTok. But I don't know if you remember this. I think this was last year. Yeah, it had to be last year. Montana, the state of Montana, was trying to block and actually got approved to block TikTok from the entire state.
Yeah, I do recall that. I think we talked about that on the show.
Yeah. And then the Supreme Court came in and was like, actually, that's not constitutional. You can't actually block this. Like, this is a First Amendment issue.
Wow.
And now I'm curious, how are they going to try to ban the app as a whole across the entire country when it's apparently a First Amendment issue?
Yeah, maybe they're going to have to get very creative. But it looks like, from what I'm reading now, because I hadn't dug deep into this, but it looks like it'll just be a very, very financially poor decision for them to stay open if they get banned. Because this is like the bill would establish fines of $5,000 per user of a banned app. So in the case of TikTok, Apple, and Google, it could potentially be on the hook for up to $850 billion each in fines.
I think the other thing about that, so obviously Apple doesn't want to get fined for having it on the App Store and then anybody downloading it, the government coming through and be like, oh, 600,000 people just downloaded this. We're going to charge you $5,000 for each person that downloaded this. Obviously, Apple doesn't want to be a hook on that. Android doesn't want to be on the hook on that. But the other thing is that people who already have the app downloaded on their phone, like they can still have access to it. So how is it actually a ban?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, our phones gonna start selling on eBay with pre-downloaded TikTok, being like, buy it now.
I think that's probably what it would end up being, or people would have when they're going to a different country and or downloading a VPN and trying to download it that way. Would you be able to switch your app store to another country? Because you can do that. You can switch your app store. and download it from another country. Would that be a
Yeah,
possibility?
I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of stuff that needs to be dealt with. But yeah, it's just like the next headline that I'm seeing in CNN Business on this is that TikTok is calling the legislation an attack on the First Amendment rights of its users, just like you were saying. So that's funny that they're going back to that as well.
I just honestly don't understand one, why they think this is a good idea. Like, if they actually believe that there is a data breach here, then we should have been banned from this when it was first introduced. Like, they would have found a way originally to ban it
Mm.
and not have Americans' data actually sent abroad.
Yeah, I think we've just lived through enough now where they're very aware of how powerful it all is in terms of
Yeah.
like shifting and shaping narratives and what that means from a political perspective. So it's probably out of fear.
Well, especially since I believe they said the 20, what was it, the 20, when did we elect Biden last time? 2020?
That sounds right.
But I believe that they said that entire 2020 campaign was
Mm.
essentially coerced and like manipulated by TikTok.
Yeah, which makes sense because wasn't the election before all about the meta problem? Like this is
Yeah.
not news, it's just a different platform. And now we don't own this one, or it's not North American, it's owned by a overseas company. And so yeah, I think it's a matter of like it's happening, but they just want to be the ones doing it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So they're like, yeah, let us do it. What the heck? But it's crazy to see. I don't know if it. What's your guess? Like if you had to put money down right now, do you think this comes to be?
I kind of do think it could happen.
See, okay,
I see ByteDance being like, hey, we'll put all the data, like they had originally stated last time, that they would have a data center in the United States.
yeah,
All that data would stay there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I just don't see ByteDance actually being willing to sell TikTok in the States because I don't know how you sell that division.
you couldn't get a fair market value for it.
No,
Because of like
absolutely not.
so you're going into a negotiation with no leverage whatsoever. You're going to get absolutely rinsed.
Exactly. Like there's, like you said, the money is one thing.
Mm,
And I just don't know how, I don't see US lawmakers being like, you know what? They won't have any access to this. Like there's
mm,
no possible way that ByteDance will give up a portion and still not have some type of access
to
to
the
the
data and
US
all.
TikTok. There's just
Yeah,
no
yeah, yeah.
way.
It's super odd because it is a weird problem though with like when we were in a data and attention economy, and now it's kind of wild to think about how much data is being collected by literal like rivals of people, right? Like that's just such a widespread thing because that was never the case when the governments could control the media, and now
Yeah.
everything's getting more and more decentralized. And I think with the emergence of blockchain, I'm sure in our lifetime, probably in the next like 5-10 years, that there will be a big truly decentralized platform where this stuff becomes irrelevant. Because if this is truly like peer to peer, then the government can't really stop that. It becomes way more difficult. Whereas right now, it's like this could be actually the renaissance of the opportunity for a blockchain built social platform because this might be the time for it. Look around, maybe start investing into that. Not financial advice, but like try to find who will win.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I also find, so I'm a Reddit girly. I love going on Reddit. And there's obviously been a lot of talk recently. And last time there's a lot of talk about how people think that Meta obviously is in the pocket of the government, is giving money to the government.
Mm,
And this is a major push for Meta to be like, hey, we need to shut down the competition. And they're probably selling every person's data. So let's get into this. Let's ban this huge platform and this huge competitor and get them to not be in the US anymore.
yeah, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, kind of
Yeah.
thing. It's like, hey, like, help us. That we're the only ones breaking the rules, and that way we can keep doing this.
Exactly.
But no, you're probably not too far off. Usually, the stuff that sounds like it's crazy ends up being unfortunately true. You know what I mean? It's always like that. At the time, it's like, oh yeah, conspiracy, conspiracy, and then later, it's like, wait, that was kind of
That
real.
was real.
Wow,
Yeah.
yeah. And so that's probably think how deep this stuff would go. Like it's crazy. I always love reading books that were from things that happened like 20 or 30 years ago, and then
Yeah.
wondering what are the books, the stories that are going to be told from stuff that's going on right now that we're not even privy to.
Absolutely. There's going to
This
be
is
so much.
this has got to be it. Well, because think about like when we say we throw around these words like data, but in terms of like what that data can actually be can accomplish in the right hands is insane because they know so much about us.
They know everything about
Yeah,
us.
like literally how you make decisions, like how you process things, and so like that ability to manipulate you at a mass scale is absolutely crazy.
Well, and sometimes, like, first of all, we've talked about this on the show. Like, this was actually even a pro tip, I believe, that we have given in the past, where you can go on your TikTok, and I believe you can also do it. You can definitely do it on Instagram, but check to see what kind of things are being like delivered to you, like what kind of like your preferences. Like, you can
Mm,
go into your settings and see what your quote unquote preferences are and what the content they are pushing towards your algorithm.
mm.
And just thinking about that little mundane data that they have on you, that's very, very minimal on what they have. Like, there's so much that they have your birthday, they have your exact location, they've got like notifications sent to you all the time. Like, they have so much data on us.
Yeah, and it even goes to like beyond just straight number data too, because they're tracking like your response to things, and then they're able to make connections by how other people would react if they reacted similarly, and so that's why they can get like custom tailored things about like so down to a fine detail about exactly what you like, because they're
Yeah.
literally like tracking when they request permissions for your front facing camera, like they're able to scan how you physically respond, like did you smile, did you laugh, like all these things, and so then they're then now able to like use that emotion to then make an even better decision next. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's insane. And also because we're not even like I'm not a data scientist. I have no idea like how you actually manipulate this data and what that can mean. So imagine with someone who truly understands these things, like and which obviously these are some of the biggest, most influential companies in the world. They obviously hold departments to deal with this crap because it's kind of their whole business.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of experimented a little bit recently because obviously I'm an American, but I'm living abroad. So I get a lot of interesting perspectives of the US election because
Okay.
of being like an expat or a foreigner abroad. And I was recently on TikTok and I was kind of just seeing like if the longer I spent on a certain video, like what kind of content would
What come
soon start being
next?
served to me and just
Mm-hmm.
different things like that. And it's so fascinating how quickly your algorithm can change just by like paying attention to something a bit longer or by changing your facial expressions or even for a long time and like my friends all thought like I was a conspiracy nut because I used to have tape like on my front facing camera
Yeah.
because I was just like I don't know what they're having access to.
Well,
And for a long
yeah. Go
time they
ahead.
just didn't know what kind of data or like what kind of videos to serve me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I'm thinking about it now. I think to stress how important this stuff actually is that think about when you got into something randomly, it's never random. Like if you track it
No.
back far enough, there was a video or something that like influenced your behavior and they start showing you more and more. And you're like, oh, I kind of like this. It's around more often. I like this. And then you see like 3 months later and you're obsessed with it. It's
Yeah.
just like that happens when we're like we have sometimes somewhat have free will. That'd be really easy to manufacture, right? Like, because just
Absolutely.
follow the same sort of path that I went down myself, but then make that happen artificially. I'm still probably going to process it the exact same way, and then
Yeah.
boom, I'm obsessed with something crazy. If they wanted that,
Yeah. I mean, to go like on a very like low stakes scale of this,
yeah.
I used to hate, and I mean like I used to hate the Adidas Gazelle shoes.
Okay, I gotta see these. I don't even know what that is.
Like they're not ugly, but like now I say that now.
As you said, you hate them. Oh,
I say that now.
okay, I've
But
seen
like
those.
but I mean like the platform ones, right? They have a platform
Yeah.
one. And I was just like, those are so ugly. I can't believe people would wear those, blah, 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 blah. Cut to TikTok serving me like one video. And I was just like, oh, that's kind of a cool outfit that she put together. And
With
then
the shoes?
another, and another. Now I have them. I have
No way.
I have 3 pairs of Adidas Gazelles because of TikTok.
See, that's another thing too, is that I wrote this whole book on basically cognitive biases. And it's
Yeah.
crazy how if you're not aware of these things, like they just happen all the time. And even when you are aware of them, you look back and you're like, oh shit, that happened. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You're like, damn, they got me. I even know that this principle exists, but it still worked on me. And we've
Yep.
actually talked about how even being privy to them, like can help you at least not be as impacted all the time. I'm trying to find that book because it was really fascinating.
Yeah, I would love to know.
It was because it's literally just outlining all of the cognitive biases and then how they would manifest in the real world and how knowing them can help you kind of not be as influenced.
Yeah, I was definitely, when I bought my first pair, I was like so annoyed at myself. I was like, you're just feeding into it. Like, you're doing this to yourself.
I found the book. It's called The Art of Thinking Clearly.
Perfect.
Rolf de Belly. It's quite fascinating because a lot of this, and this is actually I think the most valuable information. This is very similar to it too, where you read it and you say, "No, duh," but then you think about how it actually applies to your life, and you're like, "Oh, damn."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Where it's
Yeah.
like, in theory, it's very easy to understand, but in practice, you see how powerful it can be. And a lot of these are like that. Like the one we've talked about on the show, which is the most prevalent to social media, is social proof, right? And so
Yes.
now we've all adapted to where, oh, if this video has millions of views, it has to be good. But we've talked about how if you're like a true creator or like trying to build something yourself, that stuff can't be that valuable to you because naturally it's going to have a lot of competition. And that's a prime example of a cognitive bias that we all have.
Yeah. It's absolutely fascinating. It's wild. Just like, it's not even, I sometimes hate the word manipulation because I don't want to feel like I'm being manipulated, but it is manipulation on a different scale.
Yeah, the world is that though. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the
We're
world
always being
is.
marketed to.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and even if it's not like in a capitalistic environment, people have desires, and so we are social beings, and so that's a natural social hierarchy that's created from ourselves. So that's not like that's shocking, but it just sounds a lot worse when we say it with certain words. You know what I
Correct.
mean? Like, but in practice, it's going on all the time.
Yeah. I'm curious, what do you think is going to happen if the TikTok ban actually goes through?
I don't think it changes all that much
Yeah.
realistically because that attention is not going to go away. It's just going to go to one of the other platforms. I think YouTube would probably win the most from a form perspective. I think people would more migrate there. I think the experience is a little more similar to a true TikTok when you're in the consumption of
Yeah.
shorts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think they'd win big. I think Instagram would also be a huge benefactor, but I don't think things would change all that much. I honestly don't really hope this happens because I like that people with like the really short attention spans usually stay to TikTok
Yeah.
and they don't like come into the YouTube world as much. So I prefer that, but hopefully that would force YouTube to then get better at creating further distinction.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really see anything massively changing. I still think that people would be, whoever has TikTok on their phone, I still think they would
Yeah,
be still using TikTok. The only thing that would change is obviously the downloads would slow down when you're inside the US. And that means that younger kids who start getting phones won't be downloading it and would
true.
probably be a new app that comes out from this.
Yeah, there'll be some. Like, it's not going to go away. It's just going to be a
No.
different person benefiting from it.
Yeah.
You like name a time in history when something that's been this massively used and made this much money was ever just turned off. Like,
Right.
no,
Well, and
someone else comes in and takes it.
exactly. Well, and like also like this is obviously an extreme example, but the prohibition in the 20s in the United States when alcohol was prohibited, you had speakeasies come about. You had different people still were getting access to
Yeah, they'll
alcohol.
find a way. Yeah, it
Yeah.
exists all over the place. And honestly, sometimes the easiest way to communicate things is in extreme examples, right? Because it's just like the stories that are attached to them are easy to understand. And so I
Yeah.
wouldn't say that's too dissimilar from what's going on here. Like people would totally find a way. I remember even when like Flappy, this is a tiny comparison, but like Flappy Bird, remember when it got taken off the App Store
Oh my gosh,
and people
yes.
were like selling
Freaking
phones
out.
with Flappy Bird on it? That would happen with this completely.
Well, we'll see what happens. They've got about a little over 150 days left to figure out if they're
They'll
going to
sell it.
be selling this to somebody else. And if that doesn't happen, they will be removed from Apple and from all the app stores essentially in the US because Apple and other big tech companies would be fined if
See,
people download it.
see, but who could even feasibly buy that? Like maybe Amazon,
I don't know.
because it couldn't be Google and it couldn't be Meta because then the monopoly laws in the states would not allow that to happen. So then
Yeah,
it'd have to be someone who's not in this world currently that would be willing to get into it. And the only player I can even think of that would have the capital to
Amazon.
do it would be Amazon. It's the only one I could even possibly think about because who else has that much cash?
And that's a good point because Amazon works a lot with TikTok, with the Amazon storefronts and different things
Yeah.
like that. And they were even trying themselves to get into short form content on Amazon by doing like hiring influencers to come over to Amazon and do short form videos showcasing different items that people could buy on Amazon. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, the only two people I could think of would be Amazon or Apple, but it seems more of like a natural fit for Amazon in my opinion, just like
Yeah.
pure ignorance, but like just connecting things in my brain. And then another pro tip for Amazon too is that people, if there's products, you can make money through making reviews, like video reviews. Did
Yeah.
you know that? It's
Yeah.
crazy. Like it's insane that like those crappy reviews that I guess apparently they're very influential in selling people things, and they're an undertapped thing where a lot of products that even sell a lot don't have any reviews that are videos.
Yeah.
So people who are looking for something to do, definitely look into that.
Do some video content for Amazon and you will make
Seriously.
some passive income.
100%. No, but that would be interesting because content's a tough world to get into. But if you can buy a ready-made thing like TikTok, you're
Yeah.
hitting the ground running and you're going.
All right. Well, that is all we are talking about today. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please, please, please give it a 5-star review, share it with your friends, talk to your friends about it. What do you guys think? And let us know over on Instagram. We are at flick.social, or on TikTok until it gets banned at flick.social as well. Where else can they find us, Ben?
Well, I think great platforms are YouTube and then the newsletter. I don't know if you plugged that in this episode, but that's great. Download for the latest social news, all the stuff that we're talking about. It's usually we put it in the newsletter also. So if you want more in-depth things or you want links to the articles that we're talking about in the show, that's a great resource to get it, and it'll get sent to you for free.
Absolutely. Well, we will talk to you all in 2 weeks. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.